now tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? I cannot forget the beautiful, beautiful Cayman Islands. Listen, there is something special about this place. I don't know if you guys realize it or not, but there's so many people who would love the opportunity to come and live in such a lovely place, relatively safe. We have so much to be incredibly thankful for. Despite the issues that we have, because we definitely have some issues, we are still in one of the most beautiful places in the world. And you think to yourself, how hard can it be to fix the issues that we have? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. It seems really, really easy, but you've got to put the right people in elected office. And this morning, we're going to be talking to a few individuals who would like the opportunity to tell you what they stand for, how they propose to solve some of the issues that we're facing in this community and in this country, and how we're going to find our way in the global world, right? Because like I always say, we are an island, but we are not an island unto ourselves. So we have to work with other people regionally, internationally, around the globe. And it takes people who understand those things, as well as the local implications of a lot of what we have to do. So, good morning to one. Good morning to all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Just sending out my little live alerts to the group. I know someone sent me a message yesterday wanting to be added to the group. I actually got several yesterday, and I feel like I've not added one person yet. So I'm going to go back through my messages and have a look. Oh, I did add 2 people yesterday, so maybe I did add her. Okay. Basically, how it works, folks, is we have a WhatsApp group, and you're more than welcome to send me your WhatsApp contact details. And it's not technically a group because Facebook allows you to do what they call a group, and then you're able to also do a broadcast list. So what we have is a broadcast list, and the biggest difference between a group and a broadcast list is that with a broadcast list, you are able to have peace of mind that the information that is sent out is sent to you and others, but nobody on the list knows who the other persons are. So it's completely confidential, which is good because, I mean, sometimes you just, you don't necessarily want people to know who you are. Nothing wrong with that. And so, in addition to that, when I send out a message and then people respond to me, no one sees your response but me. So there is a good deal of confidentiality that, we're able to deploy with a broadcast list as opposed to a regular group. And a lot of people don't know that there is a difference for WhatsApp. So the hoopla about WhatsApp, speaking of WhatsApp, the hoopla has died down a little bit. A lot of people are up in arms. Oh, they're never going to use WhatsApp again. Some privacy concerns. They were throwing WhatsApp to the dogs. Let me not do that. And it's kind of died down a bit, largely because WhatsApp actually made a decision, quite interestingly enough, to pull back on some of the changes that they were going to be deploying. Because, privacy is a big deal to a lot of people. And I think WhatsApp realized that people are not on board with the situation. Now, I've been meaning to get to a Tech Thursday segment to really just show you guys exactly what happened, because it is very, very interesting. In fact, the full story of why WhatsApp deployed this decision to put these changes in place. Part of the reason why, in fact, is because, now this is really interesting, they kind of went to Apple and they were trying to say certain things to Apple, and Apple forced their hand a little bit because Apple has very, very tight security. I mean, one thing people know about Mac and Apple products is their security is on point. Nobody's perfect, obviously, but they're some of the best ones in the game. So when WhatsApp, sorry, when WhatsApp decided to basically roll up on Apple and say, oh, well, you're not doing this, this, and this. Apple's like, hold on a second. Actually, yes, we are. And since you want to bring it to our attention, how about you do this and you do that? It was like, oh, okay. And they weren't quite ready for the fallout. Of course, they are very, very interested in, getting to know or getting to utilize some of the things that they wanted to. It's all about money, folks. Like, seriously, it's all about money. And they are trying to make money, but I don't think that they were ready for the onslaught of everything that eventually came to light. And so, interestingly enough, when they decided to make this big announcement about what they were going to be doing, the response was swift and people were not appreciative of their intentions to try to, have access to your information, which I think they have a lot of that information anyway. But so it's interesting. At the end of the day, a lot of people I saw all of a sudden popping up on my Signal who were not there before. And Signal and Telegram. Now, Telegram is nowhere near as safe. And I can't even remember. Oh, I added Telegram for a very specific reason, because one of the groups that I'm in, they use Telegram to send out their notifications. And, it offers some degree of privacy, I suppose, but there's a lot of security flaws with Telegram. If you really are concerned about security, legit Signal is the way to go. There's not much that I say that has to be super, 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 super secure. But when I do say it online, in a private conversation, then I do use Signal. So good morning to Miss Morna, the beautiful Miss Morna. Are you out of quarantine yet, Miss Morna? Ashlyn is joining us from Honduras. Thank you so much, my dear. Olivia, buenos dias. Indira is also here. Good morning. She says, God bless you. Thank you. Mitzi is checking in with us. Miss Mitzi, you and I have been meaning to connect for a minute. And every time we say we're going to do it, it never happens. I've got another press conference today, folks. We went to one yesterday. I hope that you had the opportunity to view that press conference, which, by the way, I must tell you that in addition to all of the coverage that we're doing for the election, we are also very much involved in, everything else that's happening news-wise. So you guys would be very, very interested to know that there's another press conference today about the new hospital project, which is going to rival Health City. So that's going to be, no doubt, an interesting press conference. They've got a big announcement to make. So make sure that you log in for that. And we will bring you all of the details of, what they have to share. So I'm aware that when we go live from Facebook, I'm going to tell you guys some of the tech issues that we have going on in the background, that we have a little bit of an audio issue. And it's because in most instances, when we go live, good morning, there I am. When we go live, we're actually using, let me just fix myself. I have a girlfriend who's always like, fix your, my island. It's the other way. Fix your island so that it's nice and straight. So when we go live, a lot of times we are going live from just the iPhone. And, we live in such a beautiful world of technology, folks, that the iPhone actually rivals a lot of DSLR cameras now. Like these iPhones, especially the Pro Max series, which has the 3 lenses on the back, quality is off the chain. Like they're recording in like 4K now, which is crazy when you think about a phone that can do that. But our video quality is dependent on a few things, including the internet, the upload speeds, as well as audio, which is so incredibly important. I mean, you can have the most beautiful picture in the world, but if the audio is on point, it doesn't really matter, right? We have been struggling with finding audio solutions. I mean, we have purchased all sorts of mic. We've got the Rode mic Pro. We've got all sorts of, what do you call them? Lapel mics. We've got a wireless mic system, and it's kind of been buggy. So, just finding the time, because sometimes I literally need to just sit down with my IT guy, which at the moment is my husband. He helps me out with a lot of my tech stuff, and just really work through how these things work and make sure that I have the settings right and that I'm doing all the things that I need to do. It's a learning curve for me too, right? Because the brain has so much information in it already. It's like, okay, let me dump something to hold something else. But we spent some time last night, and I've got a little assistant who's been helping me out. And we spent quite a bit of time last night trying to figure out the audio, because I'm aware that at yesterday's press conference, so much stuff happens with the acoustics in a room. Like you guys don't see the rest of the room, but the acoustics, and it picks up what's called ambient noise, like other noise in the room. Probably one of the best things to do is to mic somebody out with a lapel mic. The newer iPhones are a little bit tricky because they only have the lightning port, not the regular phone jack port anymore. So there's lots of considerations that go into, I mean, it looks so simple when you see a live stream, but believe me, it's not always as simple as that. So I think we got a solution figured out for press conferences in particular, which can be really, really challenging, but we're going to see, because again, we don't know going into a press conference how they're going to have the room set up and what the setup is going to be like. So oftentimes, when we get there, we have to kind of look around, see where we can position ourselves, where we're allowed to position the camera, and other such things. So we will be testing it out today. We've got a new mic setup. It is a lapel mic setup. So it really depends on how many people they have speaking as well on their panel. And bear with us because eventually we'll get there. And there are times when literally you have to test it in real time. There's like no other way to just get it done. So I know a lot of you noticed I went live last night because I was trying to test out these new wireless mics within Facebook. So within the Facebook Live, system. So good morning to Larry. Larry says, good morning, Sandy and CMR audience, joining us from New York. Atlas is here. Atlas says, hello from the UK. Louis joining us from Detroit. He says, good morning, Sandra. And the CMR Massive, happy Tuesday. You guys know that tomorrow is Ash Wednesday, by the way. It is a public holiday here in the Cayman Islands. The beautiful Selena is joining us. Good morning, Selena. And Yasmin. Ooh, Yasmin got a sultry looking profile photo. Girl, you got a husband or a boyfriend? They must love that photo. Good morning to Miss Beulah. I love hers. Her profile photo says, proud to be a Caymanian. And indeed we are. Miss Joy is a Caymanian who lives in Richmond, Texas. And she says it's 13 degrees, first time in 150 years. Are you kidding? Wow. I mean, Texas does get pretty hot, but wow. Okay. 150 years. Oh my gosh. It used to get 13 degrees all the time in Tampa. Although I don't feel like Tampa's had like a proper winter recently, but I also don't really follow Tampa weather anymore. Anna, good morning. Good morning, Lizette. Beautiful Kathy is here. Oh, look at Kathy's little profile picture, her dogs. Kathy's got some beautiful dogs. Is it 2 or 3 dogs that you have, Kathy? They're her babies, just like Coco is my baby. Yesterday, somebody that I hadn't seen in a while said, oh, how's your little Coco? Oh my God. I was like, oh, I guess you didn't hear. And then they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Sometimes I swear I still hear her collar, like jingling, like she's coming down the hallway. And I remember during the show, she always wanted to come in and she's scratching on the door and let me in. I want to see what's going on in the window. Good morning to the beautiful Donna. Good morning, Evelyn. Morna's out of quarantine, out and free, COVID free. Kyle is here. So nice to see you. Miss Darlene joining us from the UK. Beautiful Tracy is also here. Miss Valdine is locked in. Thank you so much, Miss Valdine. Hey, Andy, how you doing? What? Atlas, you're back? You're in quarantine? I can't keep up with Atlas. Are you back for, it's not summer yet. It's only February. Okay, well, tell us what's going on. Neelas, good morning. Loretta. Louis says it's Fat Tuesday in the USA. I feel like this year we will not be having too many major events. So normally Ash Wednesday is the big day for the agriculture show. And this year, the agriculture show has been canceled because of the limitations on social gatherings. So we're now at 1,000 people, but that's still a relatively small number. So big shout out to Mona. Oh gosh, I always forget Mona's new last name now. Mead, who works at the Pedro St. James site. They had an event this weekend on Saturday. They had the annual Cocoa Fest. And I must say it was well attended. I think they had a good crowd of people coming and going all day. Lots of activity there. We went there a little bit later on in the day. And it was fun. Lots of vendors had their products on sale. I love events like that because you get to see people that maybe in your day-to-day journey in life, you don't always get to see. So a lot of Caymanians came out and they were having a fabulous time. And it was so good to see them. Miss Marva, I saw tons of people there that I had not seen in a long time. A lot of the Georgetown folks drove out to the Pedro area. And so that was really nice to see. So Yasmin wants to know about the 10 days quarantine. So Yasmin, it's possible. I don't think that we have a exact date of when that is going to be deployed as yet, but the intent is for once 90% of those who are 60 years and over in our population are are vaccinated, then the premier has suggested this lessening of the quarantine period from 14 days to 10 days if certain criteria are met. And they are very, very specific criteria, folks, which include the fact that wherever you're quarantining, so if you're going into private residence to quarantine, every person in that household should have also been vaccinated. That's one of the requirements. The other requirement is that you not be traveling, or indeed, I would say quarantining with a kid, because children can't get inoculated, so they can't get a vaccination. So if you're coming back into a household with a child under the age of 16, then obviously they are not eligible for vaccination at this particular time. They do not recommend it for children. So what else was on the list of criteria? I'm just trying to remember. Now they finally set up a hotline to report quarantine breaches. Folks, tell me something. Why did it take them till February to set up a hotline? Does this make sense to anyone? I've got to eat my apple. That's breakfast today because I have to take this antibiotic. I just hope that an apple is enough. This is like a small apple. I don't know if it's enough to really coat your stomach, because some of these antibiotics are really harsh in the stomach. But I saw last week, I mean, great for them. They finally set up a hotline. But when they did, it's going to be monitored 24/7. I'm like, why did it take so long? How many breaches have we had for you to finally go, oh yeah, maybe we need a hotline? From day one, what they were telling people to do was to call. Donna says it's not. Eat a cracker. Ugh, I don't even think I've eaten crackers, to be honest. Drink milk. I'm supposed to drink a lot of water and eat something before I can take this. I need to take it like now. So yeah, so they finally got around to putting up a hotline, and I thought to myself, well, good for you. I'm gonna do a what's that woman in the US called? A Pelosi? What's her first name? Whatever, Pelosi. I'm gonna do one of her moment. Yay, good for you. Yes. Pat on the back. It's like such a no-brainer. I do not get this quarantine team. I got to tell you, just like, no, sir. So yes, they finally have a hotline where you can report breaches. 943-7233, 943-SAFE. There you go. It took some brain surgeon to figure that one out. So yes, going back to the quarantine rules, they change once 90% of persons 60 and over have been vaccinated. So the other criteria, so members of the household who do not travel and have been vaccinated will not be required to quarantine, which is kind of interesting. Someone said to me yesterday that, obviously the fact that people are getting PCR tests and they are still coming in to the island and it's positive, made them wonder, is it possible that people are getting like PCR tests that are wrong? And I guess anything's possible. So false negatives are definitely possible. But I think the more likely scenario is that, honestly, people are getting the test 72 hours before, and they simply do not have enough of the viral load on their system. So, you may not show up. It's like when you first get the flu. You do realize that the second you start to feel symptoms, that's not the day that you actually got the flu. You've already had it for a number of days, right? So by the time you test positive for something, a lot of times it takes a couple days, depending on what it is that you're testing positive for it to even show up in your system. So we had this press conference yesterday with Doctors Hospital. And it was very, very interesting. Listen, I've been down this road before. And okay. Hold on one second. I got an emergency situation here. This is not good. This is not good. I don't know. Oh, let me try to make some last minute changes. All right, folks. Somebody's driving me crazy. Right. So at the end of the day, Doctors Hospital did have a press conference yesterday, and they had some very, very interesting points to make, including the fact that they will be seeking probably substantial damages. I don't know what their definitions of substantial damages are. What I do know is in the case of Doctors Hospital, this is a real screw up. And the saddest part is, good morning, James, joining us from Canada. It's the people, sorry, that will ultimately pay for the mistakes of Dr. Lee, the CBC, and others. Now, the people pay, but we never actually get to know how much the people are going to pay. Isn't this amazing? But every single time we have to fork out money to settle lawsuits, whether it's civil servants suing government or otherwise, there are, millions of dollars that are paid out in settlements, and we, the people, never get to know what that settlement is, which is unfortunate because I think we should know. If it's the public purse, there should be absolutely no reason why we are not aware of, what those settlement agreements are. Tell us. We would like to know. Like I said, it is indeed the people's money after all. So good morning to Atlas. He says he's here for just a few weeks. Good morning to Miss Barbara. Yasmin is here. We've got Donna. Thank you for the advice. I'll see what I can do, Donna, but I literally need to start eating that apple like right now. Neela says, don't drink milk and most antibiotics. They don't go well together. Ooh, I'll stick with water. He did say just drink a lot of water. So maybe I'll stick with water. Carol says, why are they still keeping all suspected quarantine breaches secret? And why has nobody else been prosecuted? Carol, that's $1 million question that I would love the answer to. I do not know. And I don't know why it's taken them so long to make a decision. Quarantine breaches are pretty straightforward, folks. You either did it or you didn't do it. There's not much more to it than you have to prove. So I don't actually know what it is that, what else do they need to know? Hi, Nancy Pelosi. Yes, that's her name. So watch the press conference in Doctors Hospital. My apologies for the low audio. The bottom line is government lost the lawsuit. I heard that somebody in government said they might appeal it. Government, don't throw good money. Don't throw, what's the saying? Good money after bad? Well, in this case, it's bad after bad. Okay. We lost the lawsuit. I must tell you, the attorneys that represented the government sucked. Honestly, I've never seen lawyers like that in my life. Well, I shouldn't quite say that because I've seen some pretty bad lawyers, but Mm, I was going to say working for government, but then I'd be lying too. Never mind. Anyway, they're bad lawyers. I was not impressed. Full of theatrics, and they still lost the case. And basically, the lawsuit is 169 pages. When I tell you, let me see if I can bring up the lawsuit, that this judge was not cutting cheese with anybody. He basically called these people, this chief medical officer, Dr. Lee, a liar, amongst other things. And they deliberately went after this organization because of whatever misguided viewpoints they had. And then, it was like a domino effect. Everything else after that fell into place was just catastrophic, to the point where everyone was just falling in line. There are people who should not have done what they did. And the poor JP, I always feel sorry for them. Although at this point, every justice of the peace should begin to know better. Customs rolls up on you and they're like, oh, sign this search warrant. Don't do it. Okay. There has to be a change in the system in terms of how search warrants are signed. And I should know this because I have been the subject of a search warrant that has, as it turns out, been found to be unlawfully obtained. I didn't get any money because that's just, I'm just a poor nut in the tree of squirrels. But you better believe that Doctors Express is going to get their coins, probably to the tune of millions of dollars, everything from reputational damage. Apparently, all of the products they put in a warehouse and they were not stored properly. So now there's that. Let me see if I can bring up this case for you guys to see. So they weren't stored properly. So now, they have to recover the cost of all of that. They're saying that patients were not being able to get the benefit of their treatment and helping them with pain management. One patient died. I'm sure she would have died anyway. But the point is, she would have died having suffered less and less pain for whatever her ailment was. So it's not good. James Austin Smith of Campbell's represented the applicants. And so he was there. I'm just going to show you guys a snippet of this lawsuit so that you can get an idea of the magnitude of what we're talking about here, folks. Lawyers charge a premium for what they do because, believe me, they are not kidding around. So can you guys see that? I think I need to increase that a little bit. 64 pages. The applicants are obviously the people who are suing. And Doctors Hospital is Cayman Islands Urgent Care Limited, trading as Doctors Hospital. So they sued Director of Customs, Catherine O'Neill, JP, poor Miss Catherine. She'll probably never sign another search warrant again. Commissioner of the Police and the Chief Medical Officer. So to kind of explain how this works, right? The additional persons that get sued, like the Commissioner of the Police, for example, that's in his professional capacity. That's not him personally, right? They're just suing the police. And so this is the protocol that they use. Now, each one of the respondents, these are persons being sued, had their own lawyers. The Attorney General's chambers did all the government people. So the first, third, and fourth respondent, that JP had to get her own lawyer. So imagine that. Now she has to go to her own expense. Mr. Nigel Gale and Anne-Marie Rambaran of the Attorney General's office. This guy, Nigel Gale, whew, what a show. I wish that you guys could have seen what I saw in court, because sometimes words just escape even me in terms of explaining exactly what transpired and what happened. Jay, is that how you pronounce your name, or Jai? Joining us from Tyler, Texas. Good morning, Corrine, Karen, Jackie. JD is also here. By the way, Brandon is back on YouTube. Don't forget, we got YouTube back up and running. So, yeah, these attorneys were quite something else, boy. Anyway, as you can see, it was heard on starting on August the 31st. It took quite a few days for them to actually get through it. And one of the legal things that they had to look at is how Section 14 of the Misuse of Drugs 2017 revision is actually construed in terms of the public health law, because obviously marijuana remains a controlled substance, but in certain circumstances now, the government has allowed for its use. So this is his judgment, folks. And I tell you what, it is scathing. He gives the background of the case. Let me just see if we can get to some conclusions here, because we're not going to sit here this morning and look at all these pages. So there was evidence that was submitted, Dr. Lee, different affidavits. So here's a point 94. Then followed a meeting, a short record of which is to be found in affidavit of the CMO as Exhibit JL1. The email, which the court regards as highly important, states in full. And so this was to Dr. Lee from Carlene Webb, dated September the 13th of 2020. Subject, vaporized medical cannabis. So let's talk about the board. The Health Practitioners Board, I think this is. Yes, the Health Practitioners Council Board met today and discussed the above mentioned caption. The board agreed a cease notice should be sent from each councils to all practitioners. From each councils, I think that should just be council with no S. However, upon further discussion with the HPC and MDC chairs, it was agreed that it might be best if the notice is sent from the office of the CMO. I have included a draft of the notice suggested by the HPC board. So all of these, the board was in discussions with the CMO and others. You guys remember this when the whole vaping thing was going on in the US, and they didn't know what was causing it. And it was getting kind of scary. Turns out that medical grade vapes are very, very different than what was actually causing people to get very sick. It was street stuff that had some vitamin E acetate component or something. So there's a lot of stuff in here. What came out during the case, however, which is super interesting, is that there was an email that apparently had been hidden from discovery and disclosure documents. And one thing you do not do is you do not hide information from the courts, because eventually they are going to find it. And when they do find it through discovery and other means, then you've got a problem. And not only do you have a big problem, but when it appears that the information was hidden, you've got an even bigger problem, folks. Wow. And that's exactly what the court believed happened in this case. That, oh, sorry, my apologies. So the court concluded that, sorry, I started clicking other stuff, and there we go. So the court actually concluded that at the end of the day, there was a desire to hide one of the emails that was quite a critical email, in fact. And unfortunately, it doesn't look good in government. It means that Dr. Lee actually lied. The same Dr. Lee who is receiving accolades for his COVID response. Now, what you might find interesting about Dr. Lee is for quite a number of weeks now, people have been sending me some footage on Dr. Lee, an article where he had been criminally charged in the death of a patient. He was found not to ultimately be responsible for that, but nonetheless, people find it incredibly interesting that that is even possible. You know? Yeah. What I will say to that is, I mean, obviously, patients die all the time, unfortunately, under the care of physicians. And it does raise an eyebrow when you're talking about physicians who have a record of maybe more than one death. And if it's a criminal allegation, then that does make you pause and think that, wow, could there be more to this individual professionally than meets the eye? Dr. Lee is a very nice person. I actually, quite ironically enough, was on the plane when he first came in to the Cayman Islands with his partner. I was sitting in first class only because I just had surgery. And I got to meet him, and he was coming in at that time as the pain management specialist. And he introduced himself, really friendly guy. We had a little bit of a conversation about him coming to work for the HSA. Most people do not think that Dr. Lee is qualified to do even what he's doing now. I guess in the Cayman Islands, the chief medical officer doesn't have much going on normally. So maybe qualifications are not that big of a deal. Like you can take someone who was a pain management specialist and promote them without much of a concern. Except then COVID hits. And then it kind of does really, really matter who you have in a position like that. Dr. Lee has a very calming manner about him, which I must say that I like. However, there have been times, even during the press briefing, that Dr. Lee has provided misinformation and he's been wrong. And we, the people, have glossed over these things quite easily enough simply because we like him and he has a nice demeanor. Well, a nice demeanor does not make for 100% of what you want in a chief medical officer. It's certainly part of it. It's great to have someone who can keep you calm. But at the same time, remember he was saying that initially it wasn't a big deal regarding the spread of COVID and how it was being spread. So my apologies. Let me clarify what I meant by that statement. He said that the likelihood of asymptomatic people spreading COVID was very slim and unlikely. And that was actually not what the medical evidence was saying at the time. Now, Dr. Lee said it, and then he backtracked a couple days later. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but when he backtracked, he said, oops, my apologies. I was essentially not keeping up with the medical science at the time in the middle of a pandemic. We mentioned it to you guys. We actually did an article on it. Something is stuck in my computer. But nonetheless, everybody kind of glossed over it. And then you reward him for being such a great expert in his field and doing such a great job with the COVID response. All I can say is, what a hot mess. There's a lot of things that happen in this country that really shock and surprise me. Does this lawsuit shock and surprise me? Not really, because they did it with Justice Henderson. They did it with me, and they still can't learn, right? I've heard people say they go to JP training and it's less than what they would have expected. JPs are not attorneys at law. A JP can be anybody. And so I think that that leads to a lot of concerns, really. And if I were JP, I would not be signing any search warrants because I know for a fact that the police try to pick JPs that they think are easy pickings. So in other words, if they believe that they can quickly and easily get you to sign a search warrant without any questions asked, they're going to do that. And that's what they did to the JP in my case, because for 20 something years, he had been a JP and had never once refused to sign a search warrant. And in fact, when Judge Henderson in my case heard that, I got to tell you guys, he was flabbergasted. He said, "What? In 20, almost 30 years, you have never refused to sign a search warrant?" This little old man, bless his little heart. He said, no. Not only had he never refused, he had never even questioned the police when they brought a search warrant to him. Why do you need the search warrant? What does this mean? What does that mean? And there were terms on the search warrant that he didn't even understand what they meant. Some of these cases really make you shake your head like you don't understand. And the judge, I'll never forget, the judge said at the time to the representative from the Attorney General's office, "Why did you not realize back in December when I said you probably don't have a case to answer, that you needed to review this case a little bit more? And settle this matter with Mrs. Catron at the time." And they were just like, "Oh, well, our client said," and the judge said, "Who's your client?" "The police." "Okay. And is your police the ones who are legally trained here? So your police are telling you how to run your case? Is that what I'm understanding you say?" Listen, it was, I felt so bad for, because the attorney was a, Caymanian female, and this judge was just like, this is unacceptable. So I was not impressed at all. Neither was the judge. And then after that, they said, okay, we're going to be finally giving JPs training. And here we are again, years later, the exact same issue. So folks, you can go through and read this 164-page document if you'd like. It is, complex in certain segments, but the conclusions drawn, quite simply put, conclusions as to the validity of the search warrant. The court finds that a significant number of formal errors and deficiencies have now been identified in relation to the search warrant. Listen, it's amazing that they got anything right in that search warrant, which is, again, unbelievable. In summary, they may be mainly set out as follows. An application was formally sought in respect of possession of a controlled drug under Section 14 of the Misuse of Drugs Act, even though there is no such offense created by that section. Did you guys understand what that just said? So they issue a search warrant for an offense that doesn't even exist. Okay, that's one hot mess. A false and misleading assertion was made that entry to the premises would not be granted unless a search warrant was produced. So that's what they told the JP in order for her to sign the search warrant. Okay. A false and misleading assertion was made that to achieve the purpose for which the warrant was being applied, it was necessary that the warrant authorize entry to and search of the premises at any time. Also incorrect. An assertion was made unsupported by any evidence or any reliable evidence that there were reasonable grounds for believing that there was an offense of possession with intent to supply. In relation to possession of a controlled drug, the applicants had, in fact, lawful authority to possess it. Point number 6. In relation to possession with intent to supply, the only basis identified by the first and third respondents was the advertisement itself, even though, as a matter of fact, the advertisement preceded the cease notice, and there was no evidence as to whether that cease notice had been disobeyed. This is just a hot mess. There was and still is no explanation as to how or why the items specified in the application would or could provide evidence likely to be relevant evidence and or substantial value to the investigation of either offense in any conceivable way. The warrant itself only identified the offense of possession of a controlled drug, failing to specify any of the items to be seized, and moreover, the items in fact seized were not produced before the court as stipulated in the warrant. It's just like one thing after the next. There was material non-disclosures as to the sequence of events, the overriding objective of the CBC to detain the items in question, and the CMO's lack of jurisdiction and justification for issuing the cease notice. So this goes back to an email that had been essentially withheld from the defense that later came to their attention, that was sent by the CMO, the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Lee. So there was a cover-up afoot, folks. It says no note whatsoever was taken in circumstances where a note was absolutely critical. Nothing was brought to the attention of the JP that mitigated against the issuance of the search warrant. And the items sought were of no evidential probative value. So number 11, again, going back to the role of JPs, right? This is why if you're a justice of the peace and the police roll up on you to sign a search warrant, you need to ask some questions and not just trust them because they are the police or they are the CBC or the chief medical officer. And we have sort of a, underlying thing in this community. We just trust people in positions of authority, no matter what they're doing. The police come knocking on your door, you're going to let them in. We don't like to question authority. That's why I find it so interesting. Even sometimes with me, like a police officer will say, oh, well, you can't do this. And I said, well, what's the basis for that? What law are you referring to? And when you start to ask them questions, because they don't have a clue, then they start to backtrack and say, well, and it's like, okay. The bottom line is they screwed up. The company has not even been issued an apology. Look at number 346. The court finds that none of this was true. Number 347. In other words, the court finds the entire enterprise was baseless and that it was conducted for an improper purpose. I mean, folks, if you have an inclination to understand the legal system or to understand why we're going to be paying out a substantial amount of money, by all means, I'm happy to get you a copy of this case, and I would encourage you to read it. So, no, Cameron, the JP will not be getting any of that settlement money. And I do feel very, very bad for the lady who is a JP in this case, because she is the most innocent of all of the parties involved. Because again, they just bring a document and put in front of you and you sign it. And going back to my case, because I have firsthand knowledge of this situation, an elderly JP man had been used for years, signing thousands of search warrants by the authorities because they know, well, he's never going to ask a single question. He's going to sign it. And he said during his evidence in my trial that, well, it's the police. And so we're like, okay, so just because it's the police, you think that they're honest, they're upstanding, and they're going to do the right thing, right? And he's like, yeah. And they're not going to lie to you? No. Okay. Mr. Wayne Panton is joining us. Wayne, pull your camera down just a little bit for me. We want to see you in all of your glory. There you go. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Sandra. I'm good. Good morning to all of your listeners and those who are watching.
170 of them are tuned in at the moment. We've got some on YouTube, Facebook, and we do have actually some. I always forget to check the other page, but I do know that some of you go directly to the Cayman Mall Road page as well to have a look at what is going on. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. So Wayne is running in the beautiful district of Newlands, where I resided for a lot of years, actually. I would like to say that that's where I owned my first property. I had an apartment in Newlands. And, you know, I don't know, like I'm only a stone's throw away. And I feel like I'm in Lower Valley, but that's Bodden Town electoral district, right? But Newlands is my favorite area still. And you have been living in Newlands for how long, Wayne? Forever as well?
Well, I moved to Newlands when I was about 4 or 5. My mother and her family are all from Newlands, and I grew up there. The only time I lived outside of Newlands was when I got married. I think I lived in West Bay for almost 5 years.
Oh, wow. That must have been interesting.
And then in the course of that, I was building my house in Newlands, and I moved back there in, I think it was sometime around 94. So it was around 90 to 90, late 90 or early 1990 to 94 that I was living in West Bay. Outside of that, I'm a country boy from Newlands, and that's my life. That's what I love. I love it the same way. I remember when you moved in. I still drive by and look over sometimes and wonder, does Sandra still own that, or did she move on to something else? But yeah, I mean, I imagine you must have lived there for about at least,
oh my gosh,
10 years probably.
More than that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm trying to remember. Newlands has like the whole of Cayman, Newlands has undergone a very substantial change. You know, a lot of the places that are growing up now, a lot of the places that are beautiful, you know, residential areas are places that I ran about in the bush as a young boy, as a child, you know, chasing cows and looking wild mangoes and guavas and all that kind of stuff. So all good stuff, you know, the kind of thing that makes you very nostalgic. But it's fantastic to see all the wonderful people in the very diverse community that we have, you know, just fantastic people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I lived right across from Mr. Scotty. We used to call him from Cayman Brack, Scott. And he, I'll never forget, he would call me on so many days and be like, Sandra, you left the key in the door again. Because so many times I would just literally forget the key was in the door, go inside, you know, you're rushing with groceries or whatever in your hand. And just such a safe neighborhood. He would see it and just give me a call, take the key out the door. And I'd be like, oh, yeah. Or after Hurricane Ivan, when my poor Oscar, my dog, used to escape out the window because somehow he figured out how to open up the window. And he would go roaming the streets. Mr. Scotty would call me, yeah, Oscar's out again. So there's so many fond memories. You know, I only moved since the last election in the past 3.5 years, actually. So we're getting ready we're not getting ready, it's here for campaigning season, election season. And of course, the election is right around the corner, quite literally, with the changes that occurred last week. Let me get your feedback on what happened last week, Wayne. We've talked about it here in this program. It's such an unusual situation. And I must say that it took me by surprise, only because I think in my mind, I was thinking, okay, this has never been done before. So I'd heard the rumblings for some while that, oh yeah, an early election is going to be called. I'm like, no, this isn't how we do things in the Cayman Islands. Well, that's what I thought. But what are your thoughts on what has played out here? Because I know you have taken a very vocal position when it comes to any sort of violence against women in particular. And, you know, you have attended at least one of the protests, and you've had signage up at your office that has said, you know, no, you don't stand for gender-based violence or any kind of violence, really. So just sum up your position on that and how you're feeling about the early calling of our election.
Yeah, well, so your recollections are correct. It was a situation that actually led to my departure from the PPM. Um, I had a number of discussions with them internally, and it was clear that there was no intention of addressing the issue in any way. So I left the PPM, I resigned from the PPM, and yeah, I did protest. There was a PPM sign that was out front from before, for the 4 years before that. I turned it around, and there was some 4 or 5 young ladies that came in here and actually wrote up the back of the sign, and they had this great script on there, hashtag she is supported, zero tolerance. Um, I entirely endorsed that, what they were saying, and I was very proud to see them taking that kind of stance. And I went back up and I reattached the sign to reflect the level of protest that we were feeling, and the support that we wanted to demonstrate to women in the country. Am I still on? Not sure. Anyway, I'm going to keep talking. I can't tell whether I'm still on, but so in terms of what happened, I wasn't surprised that it happened. I thought it was possible. There was an indication previously from the premier that he wouldn't be doing it, but I think he takes the view that he's going to outsmart people wherever he can, and I think effectively that has created a real problem for some people who are interested in running and planning to declare later on. It could be viewed as an unfair approach. That is an entirely possible conclusion to reach. That hasn't happened here before. It's not something that we typically do. But to be fair, it happens in other countries. In other jurisdictions, we don't have a defined election date and election period, and the government of the day can actually change when an election occurs, basically to suit them when they think it's best. But we have not done that here in the past, and there's always a lot of talk about honoring tradition and whatnot, and I think it's very unfortunate that in this particular case this was done for the reasons that it was done, because I don't regard those as good enough reasons. We changed the election law. Sorry, we changed elections after Ivan because of the necessity of doing that. That was perfectly understandable at that time. That was a necessity. In this case, it wasn't necessary to do this. I understand the concern about wanting to go down to the LA and defend a position. But that's what Parliament is for, and that's what these issues, these sort of procedures are designed to do. People need to be held accountable. Shutting down the Parliament, having it prorogued, and having early elections doesn't change the fact about what happened, and it doesn't change the fact that somebody wasn't held accountable. And I'm not happy with that approach. But we are where we are, and we have to move forward. I don't blame the governor in terms of his decision. I think they have a long history of sort of trying to respect the internal decisions of the government, particularly in something like this. And I don't think he can be blamed. If he had tried to do otherwise, I think there would be those who would be criticizing him for that, for meddling. So I don't blame the governor, but it's not. This is not a justifiable action, and it has caused problems. I think the it's unfair, and I've heard views from many of the many constituents that it is unfair to them. They feel like it's a very compressed time frame, and they haven't had the time. They won't have the time to hear all the views. My wife, her complaint is that we should have moved it up before Easter so that we can get it out of the way. But that's a selfish sort of perspective. But no, it's not something that I think should have been done, but it has been, and I don't think there's anything that we can do about it. I think we just have to move forward and deal with it. And those of us who are already prepared and in emotions of being prepared, I think are okay. It does have an effect on others, and I think it's very, very unfortunate that even though it's a small number, it's very unfortunate that you have, I think it's about 18 or so young people that are being disenfranchised and denied the right to vote. So,
and it's especially, in my opinion, egregious because this would have been their first time voting. And I don't know what it took to convince those 16 young men and women to even register. I find that oftentimes it's very, very challenging to get young people to register because they feel like no matter what they do, no matter how they vote, it isn't going to make a difference. I mean, I've heard that song and dance so many times. And to now put at least 16 of them and to say, oh, well, that's not a big deal. That's not a big number. It's like every single person matters, right? So during COVID, we talked about the importance of all lives mattering. No matter if the person was 99 years old and on their last breath, no one wanted to know that we had a death here as a result of a COVID infection that could have been prevented. So if you're using that same sort of logic that the premier has used with other things, like every person counts, every person matters, why do those 16 individuals not matter all of a sudden? Because you want to call an early election.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is very unfair and unfortunate and unfair to them. And, as you said, to me, young people have the most to lose, right? And I love talking to young people about politics and about engagement. But they're very cynical because of things like this. This is just one of the examples of the kinds of things that they're cynical about. Their rights are just tossed out the window because of political expediency. Exactly. And I can't blame them for feeling that way. But you continue to try to encourage them. They feel like their vote doesn't make a difference, and as politicians and leaders in the country, we need to do all that we can to change that view, to demonstrate to them that they do matter, because they really do. I mean, at the end of the day, who has the longest, most vested interest in the future in Cayman? It's not us that are middle-aged, that are purporting to be leaders in the country and have the experience and the education to really contribute and the desire to try to make a positive difference in the lives of the people in our country. It's not us. It's the younger people, and we need to be setting an example for them, and we need to be demonstrating to them that their future means more to us than our some convenience at the moment for us. And I can't. I feel very passionately about that kind of thing. I believe in the medium to longer term interest, best interest, not just political expediency for the moment. I always say that principle is for the ages, and expediency is for the moment, and that's all this is. This helps a particular individual at this point in time, with the history, with the relevant history. It means that in another year there'll be something else, and maybe a year after that there'll be something else, probably with the same person. So this is just a short-term convenience that has a long-term impact on other people, and I find it unfortunate.
Cameron says that she's looking forward to having you return to serve your country. Now, Wayne, when we look at the numbers of the last election, your loss was the closest. I think it was by 15 votes.
Yes.
So it was the closest in the last election. And quite shocking, I think, for a lot of individuals. And I got to tell you, I've got my ear to the ground and I listen to a lot of what's going on. And there does seem to be the sentiment that you are back to be victorious this time. So Cameron is sharing that. She also wants to know if you would support a national vote because we are more disenfranchised as voters and MPs have less accountability to the country under the current one man, one vote regime. So a lot of us got sold this constitutional change of one man, one vote on the basis that it would lead to greater accountability. Now, as we sit back and we see even what's happening with this unity government, we kind of question if that is true at all. We now have 19 constituencies. We see that it's a lot smaller. Theoretically, it's easier for an MP to manage his or her constituency, only having, maybe 1,200 or 1,300 individuals as opposed to, 5,000, 6,000 or whatever it used to be before. But two major things have come out of that. One is, as Cameron has said, less accountability for MPs and voters just feeling so much more disenfranchised. And then the second thing that I've observed with certain individuals is this concept of garrison politics, where you support a candidate no matter what they do, and they can control or have a stronghold in a very specific area, allowing them to continually get voted in. Seems to be a reality that we have created with the one man, one vote system. So what are your thoughts now that we have seen one full election cycle of one man, one vote? We're going into a second one. What are your thoughts on how it's working? What your constituents have been saying and what people in the district have been saying? And do you think it's really the right way for us moving forward?
Well, let me tell you up front, you may remember that I was one of the advocates for one man, one vote. It exists in many other countries and territories in the Commonwealth. It works very well. Barbados, for example, is a country that has had the system for, I think, more than 50 years. It does work well, but you have to hold people accountable. One of the things I've found really surprising going around talking to people is the lack of any attention that gets paid by representatives to a broad swath of their constituency. It seems that some of them, they'll sort of see the same people, same small number of people or relatively small number of people more frequently. But in general, the 90% of the people don't hear, don't get visited. And I find that very, very disappointing. One of the things I found most rewarding about getting involved in politics was being able to go out and talk to people, and meet people across, not just within the constituency, but across the broader districts and across the country. I enjoyed, for example, doing. I probably in the last government before this one, I am absolutely certain that I did probably 75% more public consultation on issues. And that means meetings in each of the districts than anybody else. And I found it very rewarding. I mean, some of the issues were sensitive, some of them were a bit difficult. And there was a lot of engagement. Sometimes there was a bit of a heated discussion. But I find it very rewarding to talk to people about issues that I understand their perspective, even if they don't agree with me or I don't agree with them. And to me, it's wonderful to see the diverse range of people from all kinds of nationalities in Cayman. A lot of our fellow Caribbean citizens and stuff that live here with us and are a part of our country. I think it's wonderful. It's a really enriching thing, and I found that it was much more enjoyable than I anticipated. Able to get out there and talk to people and understand exactly what their particular concerns were and try to help them find solutions. And I find that, and not just in Newlands, but I've seen it in in other constituencies as well, because I have people who contact me or get in touch with me through either directly or indirectly, and they have some problem that they need an answer or help with, and they tell me that they've contacted their representative and they don't get a response, or they get a promise of, yeah, I'm going to get back to you, I'll call you back, and they never do. I think it's really important to follow up with people. I mean, nobody's going to be perfect, right? Let's just say that nobody's going to be perfect. There are times when you're rushed, and you may forget, and you may fail to make a note to get back to a person. But where it seems to be very prevalent, and it seems that the vast majority of the constituency doesn't hear from their representative, or doesn't see their representative. I think that's a failure on the part of the representative. I don't think it's necessarily a failure in the system. We have the ability to hold them accountable every 4 years, but I am disappointed that having made the change, we don't see, because there's smaller numbers. We should be able to see people more often. We should see them engaged, and I don't care whether you're on the back bench or the opposition. It doesn't matter, or on the front bench of government. It doesn't matter. You should be able to engage more. And I can tell you, I was never elected under the one man, one vote, single member constituency regime. I was elected under a multi-member, and then I lost the election at the time we switched over to one man, one vote. I have always known one thing, and that is you can be the best minister in the country, or you can be one of the best ministers in the country. You can have people, whether it's in the FCO or whether it's in the governor's office, telling you you're doing a great job and all that. If you don't have the time to get out and spend with constituents and spend with the people that vote for you, you have a problem. And that was a mistake I made, and I know that. This time my focus is going to be the other way around. It is going to be at least half the time I want to be spending with my community and addressing specifically the concerns in my community. So people don't vote for ministers, they vote for representatives.
Exactly.
I made that mistake, and I don't intend to make that mistake again, because I sort of pulled back a bit over the initial part of the last 4 years. I said, okay, let's give people a chance and see what they can do. I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied that the representation has been there, and I'm not satisfied that there's really been any attempt to accomplish much for the constituency, at least my constituency. And I've seen that in others as well. So it's something that needs to be addressed, and I don't intend, as I said, to make the same mistake. I used to work, Marco Archer and I would work until 8 o'clock at night. The government lights in the government building go off at 8 o'clock, and you can get up and turn them back on if you need to stay. But that was sort of our cue that we had to go home to our families. But you remember when we started, we were elected in 2013. The country was in complete shambles, absolute shambles. Fiscally and otherwise, rule of law seemed to be out of the door. There was no transparency, horrible governance, and the country was basically flat broke with a mountain of debt. We all worked hard between 2013 and 2017 to turn that around. We managed to, despite having been handcuffed by the framework for fiscal responsibility and all that, we managed to really turn government's finances around. And that's what has been helping us. The significant reserves paid down a lot of the debt and has given us the cushion to be able to weather the pandemic to the extent that we have. I mean, a lot of people are still suffering. A lot of people still need help, and this year is probably going to be worse than last year. And so, it's good that there are resources, but I don't think that the government is doing enough at the moment. I think they need to do more. As I said, I don't intend to make the same mistake again in terms of my focus. There's another thing as well, and that is, when you're in government, you tend to focus on your lane. You've got certain responsibilities which are given to you by the premier and the governor. I focused on my lane, and I tried to make sure that I did the best job there, and I think I was very effective. My job involved a lot of international travel, and I spent time in Europe, Brussels, the UK a lot, but it included Germany and spending a lot of time in the US. A lot of time in the US Capitol. It was eerie seeing a lot of the scenes that happened on January 6th with the insurrection that occurred there. Seeing a lot of the places that I was familiar with there, going, where I walked those halls and went down to meet senators and representatives to try to address issues in relation to Cayman's interests. That was all very, very eerie and interesting. But yeah, notwithstanding that, I want to be on the ground more, and I want to be there for people and address issues. And it doesn't matter whether you're on the backbench or not. I mean, they have the opportunity to come to cabinet and lay out all of the things that they think needs to be addressed. I don't know the extent to which that has occurred. There has been some work done in terms of some road work, but those roads have been really bad for a while, and it needed to be addressed. And the last 4 years, the government has had significant reserves because of the work we did between 2013 and 2017, and I think they should have been able to do more to help the people of this country and make their lives better.
Wayne, thank you so much for that. We do have some comments that are coming in. I've always said, and I know this sounds like a very simplistic approach, but to me, it makes sense when you understand how people work, people being, me, you, voters in general. I think that unfortunately, when someone goes into office their first term and they become a minister or even a consular to a lesser degree, they put themselves at a disadvantage because they don't really get to immerse themselves at the district level to kind of get the business of the average person done. And I've seen offices that are ran, constituency offices, by individuals who they're like, listen, you need to come and sit down and talk to me about filling out an application for a business license. Wayne Panton is way more qualified, to be able to do that sort of thing. He's an attorney who's retired from a law firm. He's been in practice for many, many years. He's a partner at that law firm. But that's what people want often of their elected officials. Not that he has to sit down and manually do that, but oftentimes it's just the person just looking to have a word with you. And you take on a ministerial position, as you rightfully said, it's a lot of responsibility, more than most of us will ever know. That's required of them. They have to keep office hours at the government building. They're involved in cabinet meetings and decisions. They're running an entire multiple government departments. So it's a lot of work, working with chief officers, working with all the civil servants that fall under the umbrella of the different departments, plus also trying to make yourself available to your constituents. And let's face it, there really is only 24 hours in any given day.
Yeah.
So it's always been my opinion that if I were ever an elected official and someone said, oh, do you want to be a minister your first term in? I would graciously say no, thank you, decline that offer, and just focus on building at the constituency level. And I must say that I like your slogan for this year about community, really building the country, because that speaks exactly what I'm trying to convey in this moment, that you start at the most basic fundamental level of making sure that your constituents are happy and that they're good. And then maybe by the second term, you know how to manage your time a little bit better. Your constituents have an idea of how you operate. Taking on ministerial roles makes a bit more sense at that particular time. So Elizabeth says every 4 years, they can be seen doing something in their district and interacting with their constituents. Speaking to the point that really the people disappear. And I'm glad that you have addressed in your situation that not only have you maintained an MP office, well, not technically an MP office, but not only have you maintained, I guess,
that's only the community office.
Community office. But you also continue to do and work in the community, despite the fact that you were not, reelected to office. And I think that says a lot. And I'm always perplexed at candidates. Everybody's coming out the woodworks right now, obviously, because it's that time. But I'm always a bit perplexed at candidates who ran in the last election, may have done well, may not have done well, whatever the situation is. And now they're coming back and they're saying, right, they're going to run again. And in the past 4 years, no one has heard from them. We've not seen them in the community. We've not seen them voicing their opinions on any platforms. It's like such a lost opportunity. And I'm really glad to see in your instance, Wayne, that you didn't do that you really stayed the course and have proved your dedication to, what you're saying that you want to do, which is represent the people. So Ms. Sue weighs in. Ms. Sue, by the way, you're in Savannah, right? I think Ms. Sue's in Savannah. She says, our young people and families need help to be able to buy homes at a reasonable cost. As right now, there's nothing. All these buildings are way too high. They don't stand a chance, and the cost of living needs addressing ASAP. Then, of course, the health issue for retirees. We need help with all of these things. And we're going to start talking a little bit here about the cost of living and what are some of the solutions that Wayne has for that. So Stephen says, good morning, Mr. Panton. I thank you and Mr. Archer. I think you and Mr. Archer are great ministers. I hope that you two will have another opportunity to lead this country into prosperous years ahead. Cameron says, last election, the people spoke with their vote and didn't get what they wanted. They voted for change and hope their vote for change this time around can be respected and adhered to. Interesting comment, Cameron, because they voted for change, but not enough of them did. And that's why you kind of had a split down the middle, where it was relatively easy for the progressives to reformulate into unity government with the help of the CDP. So it was like 7 and whatever. UDP got like 3 seats. And, the independents, I think, not to take anything away from the independents, I think they actually did really well in the last election. And I think that what people forget is the country spoke when it came to the progressives. They didn't speak loud enough. And I think there were not enough people speaking loudly. But, any government that has 3 ministers removed in a single term, I think that is a strong message that you are not happy overall with that government, maybe not even necessarily those individuals. And they were still able to get back in there and finagle their way back into unity government, which speaks a lot to the skill set that Alden McLaughlin has. Miss Janet says, I'm glad to see you recognize your mistake. And I'm also glad, Wayne, that you said that. I mean, Wayne said he made some mistakes. How many times have you guys ever heard an MP, a representative, say that, you know what, I recognize that, I did certain things wrong and I'm intending not to make those mistakes again. So well done. And Miss Janet recognizes that as well. She says, I'm glad to see that you recognize your mistake. It's all about representing your people all the time. Most politicians only come around every 4 years, and good luck to you. Good morning, Ronika. How are you? Stephen says, as a voter of West Bay, I wish I could vote for those who I believe in versus who I'm forced to contend with. Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know exactly what area of West Bay you're in, Stephen, but hopefully you will have some choices. John on YouTube says, if you have experience within a certain field, then you should assume a ministerial role. Okay.
Could, I think he was just
point taken at some point, but that doesn't make you, I think, John, the problem with that is that doesn't make you an effective leader. It doesn't make you a good minister even. There's so much more involved in being a minister than just having experience in a particular area. I mean, look at poor Tara. The word on the street right now is Tara is reconsidering whether or not she should even run for re-election, because I think the people are sending her a very strong message ahead of the election that they're not particularly happy with her. And maybe she's listening to that because the streets are talking that she may not run again. She's a lawyer, although she didn't have the years of experience, obviously, that Wayne Panton would have had. She wasn't a partner or anything like that. But, you know, what does Tara know about running an organization, running a business, or running anything? And when you're put into a ministerial role, that's what it's all about. It's about leadership. It's about, you know, I think people who have had certain types of experience, not just having experience in a certain field. So you can be a lawyer, but you can be, you know, just an associate in a law firm or a senior associate. You have no management experience. You don't know how to run an organization or any of those other things. That is a very different situation. And it doesn't mean that you even understand the world of financial services, for example. So she has been, you know, put as the financial services minister. And by all accounts, you know, a lot of people are not really happy even with her performance there. So it's an unfortunate situation. And I do think that it takes all kinds. And I'm going to say this at this point because I do think it's relevant. During the last election, I had some people. Now, I know that MP Kenneth Bryan was supposed to join us, but he's actually got a few commitments, so he may not be coming in again today. You know, he has his event that's coming up this weekend, folks. Go out and support Hogs Thigh Bay. Last time, a lot of people were like, oh, you know, well, Kenneth doesn't have a degree and he's not qualified. He's not this and he's not that. And I said, listen, it literally takes all kinds to be a representative of the people. I believe, obviously, as someone who has worked incredibly hard. Speaking of Kenneth, there he is. He's jumping in here. As someone who has worked, and Kenneth, I'm actually talking about you, so I'll bring you into the stream at the exact same time. You know, I believe that having certain qualifications are extremely important. So yes, jumping in here. So I'm getting some feedback from you, Kenneth.
Sorry. I was trying to monitor on
okay.
my laptop at the same time as watching show on the phone. So sorry, go ahead.
No worries. So I was just saying that, listen, it would be dishonest of me to say that I'm not a person who believes in an education. I came from a very poor family, came from nothing, and I believe that at all costs, it was important for me to get one piece of paper. Now I have 3 or 4, not that it matters much in this country, but anyway, it's about, you know, your personal accomplishments, and you can say, I've done this, and I can support myself, and no one can run circles around me when it comes to having a discourse or discussion on the things that are important to me. So that's the benefit that you can't put a price tag on. Yeah, but, you know, Kenneth, I had a lot of people last time. I was very supportive of your run. And there are people who were like, oh, we're trying to bring up your past, and he's done this and he's done that. Oh, and he doesn't have a degree. He's never ran a business. And I'm like, okay, pump the brakes. Those things can be extremely important. It just depends, obviously, on who you're talking about. So, for example, Dwayne Seymour has ran a business, but do I think that makes him qualified to be a minister? Absolutely not, because he has ran a business that I know, for example, that his employees haven't been paid pension, and during COVID, they weren't being paid health insurance. So running a business and running a business well and efficiently are two very different things. So just because someone is a business owner, just because someone has a professional degree, an accountant or a lawyer, whatever, that does not mean that they're going to make a good politician. That does not mean that they're going to understand their constituents and represent them well. And I really rode for Kenneth hard. I mean, I had people who were like, no, Sandy, you know, we're going to have to agree to disagree. And I said, no problem. We can do that. And then after the election, and after seeing Kenneth having a certain stick-withedness, as we would say, they came back and they said, you know what? I'm going to give Kenneth an opportunity because he really seems to be passionate about this and he seems to care. And Kenneth has his own methods that work for him in terms of keeping in touch with his constituents. But I believe that at the end of the day, we can learn from everyone. So Kenneth can learn from someone like a Wayne Panton, who is a seasoned, you know, professional in his own right, a business owner, a leader in this community, just like Wayne can learn from Kenneth, although Kenneth is younger and may not have all of the experience or the same type of experience. Kenneth has, you know, he brings a certain sense of street smart with him and understanding the people at the most basic level. And I think that diversity in politics is something that's important. Every person shouldn't be a Kenneth Bryan. Absolutely not. every person in politics shouldn't be a Wayne Panton. It's the combination of different types of people. That's why we need women in politics who are qualified and who care about the issues that matter most to the people in this country. Because the female voice, the woman's voice, I think, is often unrepresented. There's no man that can say that he understands what it's like to be a woman unless he's lived as a woman, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, everything from childcare issues to the difficulties of trying to be a businesswoman, to be taken seriously. And you still have all the other obligations of raising a family, because most of us come from very traditional Caribbean environments where women, there's certain expectations that are placed on the woman, despite the fact that she's working, she might be a professional. You still need to take care of the household, and you still need to raise your children and do the drop offs to school. And, you know, there's some progressive men who are now stepping up to the plate and saying, oh yeah, I need to also carry some of that burden and some of that load as a family unit. But, you know, having that diverse voice in the LA is important. This past term, I was woefully disappointed in all of the women there, because I do not believe that they advanced any issues on behalf of families of women. And not only did they not advance any issues, but the opposite has happened, with them remaining silent on what Mr. Bush did, attacking a woman at her workplace. Imagine if I was employed with someone and they attacked me at work. It's just unconscionable that no one has spoken out about this incident, none of the women in particular, on so many different levels. I mean, workplace violence is, you know, whether it's sexual assault, whether it's, you know, sexual abuse, physical abuse, whatever, workplace concerns are real, and they're especially real for women. So Kenneth, thank you so much for jumping in. I know you said you've got a lot going on today. I see that obviously you've got shirts printed already. Mess with you.
Yep. Getting prepared, not only shirts, but also the mask for seniors.
What? Together we still can.
As the campaign starts, and I'll try to be as quick as I can because I don't want to take too much time away from Mr. Panton. As the campaign starts, you know, we want to get the message out to people what we stand for, and I don't want to hinder any way from persons feeling uncomfortable coming out to the public meetings. So we got some of these masks, particularly for my seniors who may want to come out. You know, traditionally we are a society that likes to go to public meetings, so I was trying to keep that in mind. But just so I can remind the public who's listening, we have the Hawkesbury Bay Day event this coming Sunday at 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And I'm really looking forward to everybody coming out. Come after church, or if you don't go to church, that's fine too. You can come on out. We're going to enjoy the Hawkesbury Bay area. We're going to have some food and refreshments, Cayman style, fried fish and fritters, and some swanky, and just some regular sodas and waters for those who want to enjoy themselves, kind of taking us back in time of what it used to be like. And if you're a new Caymanian, now you can start to understand the storylines and the talk about history about how Hawkesbury Bay started the Georgetown area, because Panton was the first district, but it is now our hub and where we developed all the way up. So come on down and enjoy ourselves. One more thing for my constituents who are listening, obviously, as you said, the shirts have arrived. This is the executive committee shirts, but we have the regular campaign supporter shirts, which have our slogan on it, "Together we still can." And as you remember, my slogan last time was "Together we can make Cayman better," and I haven't changed it. So after going through all that kind of thinking, I said we can still make it better. So we just added the logo on there saying we still can make Cayman better. So all my supporters who support me, and particularly my registered voters, you know where my office is at. You have my number. We have our shirts ready for you, because we will have our kickoff to the campaign on the 4th of March, especially considering the fact of what was announced the other day with the early elections. So we're in full swing now. And that's why I was just saying earlier on the show, on the message to you, that got a lot of work to do. So I'm going to be short and brief on most of the shows now, because no matter what you think, you can't win without the hard work on the ground. Nobody just wins by, oh, I like ability. You got to get on the ground, talk to the people, and be out there and put in the work. I must say, Mr. Panton, I really also appreciated your statement about recognizing that you have to split those responsibilities half and half, because as you know, I respected you very much. You know our relationship behind closed doors. And to hear you say that means to me that you really recognize that even though that hard work you put in as a minister, and you should be accredited for that, that all politics is local. No matter how much you shine on an international stage or up in a cabinet level, the people don't always understand the magnitude of that on the effect of their lives. It could help them in so many ways, but if they don't see it, they don't feel it, then they won't understand and they won't vote for you. So as from a friend to a friend, trust me, that will help you a long way. So that being said, Sandra, thank you for the opportunity to be on the show. Please, folks, don't forget Hogstye Bay this coming Sunday. Come and enjoy yourself. Everything is free. It's just for us to enjoy the memory of Hogstye Bay, of being able to swim in there, because once we get past COVID, I'm promising you, we're not going to have many times to swim in Hogstye Bay anymore. So, Sandra, thank you so much. And I guess I'll see you next week.
You'll see me on Sunday. I'll stop by for Hogstye Bay.
Okay, sounds good.
Hogstye Day.
Day.
Say that fast 4 times.
I want to know,
right, folks.
I want to know whether all of us are invited to come and swim in Hogstye Bay, because that's where, as a young man, that's where I grew up swimming. You know.
Yeah, man.
All the boys from Georgetown and stuff, we used to go and climb up on the. No telling anybody I said this right. And the rest on watching, don't say nothing. But we used to go and climb up on the ships and go out on the booms and jump off.
Which ships? Like the big cruise ships?
Oh no, the old cargo ships that used to come in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, the ones after Kirkbride, I think I was kind of probably too young to climb out on the Kirkbride boom, and then all the Honduran ships that used to come in, you know, we would be jumping around there and swimming in Hogstye Bay. Another suggestion I have: try to have a little skill pot catching contest on the beach.
If there's any skill pots left.
If there's any left, but tell them not to hurt them. You know, just
that's true.
Catch them and look at them carefully and enjoy it. You know,
I want to do a video about skill pots, because a lot of people don't understand. I had to actually teach my daughters about 3 months ago what skill pots were.
I have never even. What is it called?
Skill pot it's a little crustacean. It's called they call them sand fleas. They're the coolest little things. They're almost round. They're like little balloons with legs. And they're like sandy colored, a little bit of, they're beige or whitish with little spots, little light brown spots.
Yeah.
But they're the coolest things, and they're, you know, the easiest way to catch them is to get a little bit of fish or something like that and put it on the edge of the sand where it's washing in the surf, and you'll see them popping up, and they're the coolest things. But don't hurt them.
Don't they bite you when you go to the beach at night when dusk starts to come out? That's what's biting you?
No. That's a different thing.
Okay. Boy, looks like I got some learning to do here, folks.
They got wings and they fly in the air. These little things, they have what looks like wings that they can fly in the water. They live in the sand.
Can I tell you an interesting fact about that, just for your listening audience, right? Skill pox are so essential to the environment, because the skill pox it's like a rodent that keeps the sand clean from any debris of fish left over. And that's why we have such beautiful sea and sand, right? And they're a very important part to the environment overall picture, that sometimes these things are lost and they don't understand. Everything has its place on Earth. And I know, Wayne, you're a very big protector of the environment.
Keep talking, Kenneth. You're doing a good job.
So and not only that, but it's a cultural element. And we got to do a better job of informing people the value of these things to the bigger picture. Because the person may go, oh, this little crustacean, what's the big deal about this?
Right.
But that plays such a bigger role in the things that we love and appreciate every day. And one of the things that you may see in my manifesto coming up is the green motion. I'll put a green leaf next to the things that I want to focus on the environment, because I've had a big focus from my constituency, particularly up in the Crew Road area, that want to hear more about in the environmental policies I would support. Like, say, for instance, I personally believe there should be mandatory recycling. I think we're well developed, we're mature enough now that it shouldn't be an option whether you recycle. I think it should be mandatory, and I've gotten enough support from many people in my constituency, so you're going to see that in my manifesto. But I'm not going to take it over. My point was, I agree with you, Wayne, in respect to the importance of little stuff like a skill park, because it really helps us understand the whole of the Cayman Islands and the value that it has.
Interesting.
Well, I
Wow.
mean,
Well,
back
I've
in the
never, like I said, I've actually never heard of them before, but someone else messaged me on WhatsApp and they said Skilly Pot looks more like an albino cricket.
it could be
Right?
considered that. Yeah, I mean, they don't have big, transparent wings like that, like a cricket, but it looks kind of
Yeah.
similar if you had it without the wings. Yeah, they're cool.
Well,
They're very cool.
if you have
Well,
them out on Sunday, Kenneth, you'll have to show me what one looks like.
I have to.
And
I have a picture. I have
I'll
a picture
definitely bring my
of
daughter
one.
because she's
I'll send
into,
it to you.
okay, she's into all sorts of critters. She likes everything that crawls and that might make me start to itch, but she loves it. So we'll definitely be there. Thank you so much again. So Sunday, remind us of the time.
It's 1 p.m. It's right down there on the south terminal at Hogstye Bay. If anybody's coming, remember we don't want any plastics out there at all. So we're using all paper and things that can
Biodegradable.
biodegrade. Thank you, Wayne. Things that are biodegradable, because we don't want any straws. We don't want no plastic cups. We don't want anything like that, because we want to protect the environment. And because we're so close to the water, it's so easy for things to flow into the water. So come on down, enjoy yourself. It's all you got to do is just come and put on a bathing suit and enjoy it. And even if you don't want to go in, just come and enjoy the environment and the culture element that we're trying to portray. And for those seniors who've been there before, remember what it was like as a kid going there. If you don't have the strength to go in, that's fine. Come and sit with your friends and talk about when you used to do it. And again, lastly, it's not only for Georgetown. It's for everybody in the Cayman Islands, including me and Panton. I'll leave you guys there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kenneth.
I hope you're doing a CLIC demonstration, Kenneth.
That's exactly what I intend to do, CLIC, if those who remember that.
So this sounds like an awesome day, Hogstye Bay Fun Day on Sunday, February the 21st. That's this coming Sunday from 1 to 5 p.m. Bring the entire family, folks. They're going to have music, refreshments, tubing, bicycle riding, and all sorts of other activities that will make you just be so nostalgic about attending the event. The only thing that I'm hoping that I won't be getting there on my way is a bucktail. So thank you again, Kenneth.
Bye.
Because I remember getting way too many of them as a kid.
Under no circumstances,
Yeah.
that don't contribute to nothing.
Okay,
But
just so you know that there will be lifeguards there as well, so people can feel comfortable from a safe perspective that there'll be lifeguards on duties. We want about 7 to 10 there from the different angles, from up from the dock, from on the shoreline, and Red Cross will be there. We're expecting the fire trucks to be there as well. So just in case anything happens, there will be emergency crews available to keep us all safe. All right?
Thank you, Kenneth.
God bless. Have a good day. Take care easy, Mr. Panton.
Take care, Kenneth.
All right. So awesome stuff. Thanks again, Kenneth, for that information, folks. Mark your calendars for this coming Sunday. Nice family fun event. Wayne actually hosted a family fun event. Was that about a month ago at Pedro St. James?
January 16th, I think.
Okay. So exactly a month ago, because today's February 16th.
Exactly a month ago.
So lots of people enjoyed that as well. I think that, these activities that bring families together, bring neighbors together, you get to eat. By the way, the food at that event was great, I must say. Everybody knows I'm a foodie. So sometimes I rate events based on food has to be one of the criteria, but it was catered and the food was delicious, local food, barbecue chicken and other things. But yeah, thank you so much for doing these community events, because I think that, as you say, community builds country. Kenneth, link up Kathy. She says that she needs to get a shirt from you. Ms. Elizabeth says, love the calmness of Wayne Panton, and he's a good listener, respects her. Johan has the most to say this morning. Johan, thank you for your contributions. Miss Sue says, absolutely right. Kenneth, Kathy needs a mask and a t-shirt. Cameron says, we need you in the ring. 1 week left. 1 week left for what? Which ring? Are we doing something with a ring at Hogstye Bay? I don't know. Larry says, how about some CMR t-shirts? Well, Larry, we've got a whole list of things that we want to do, but CMR is on a very tight budget. So we will put that on the list. We just started rolling out some merchandise. So we've got some mugs, some pocket sockets. So give us some time, Larry. We'll get there. CC says people used to skip school and go fishing and swimming. Well, don't skip school, CC, but you can still go fishing and swimming after school or on the weekends. El Rey says Kirk Pride, an island supplier. I guess he's reminiscing about jumping off the.
He's remembering.
Yes. Miss Daisy is also one of those people who said that she was jumping off of ships. What, Miss Daisy? Mess with you. Miss Valdine is asking if we'll do a live event from Sunday's Hogstye Bay Day. Yes, we will do, even if it's just a short live. I realize that you guys appreciate the live, so anytime we can get to any of these events, we really go out of our way to bring you a snippet of what's happening, because some of you are overseas or you can't always make it. And this sounds like this is going to be a lot of fun. So for sure, we'll live stream it. And Marshall is also reminiscing about swimming at Hogstye Bay. He said those were the days. Elizabeth.
I want to ask if anybody remembers the solution to addressing when you got your feet full of sea eggs.
Yes, we talked about this.
We'll say it in a nice way.
We actually talked about this last week when Kenneth was first sharing his vision of what his event will be like, and we talked at length about how they were removed from your foot. So yes, we've gone into that conversation. Eden made some interesting contributions to the science behind it, which again, exactly. It might be lacking in science, but for us, it seemed to have worked. Shirley says, good morning.
There's science behind it. There's chemistry behind it.
Yes. Shirley says, good morning, all. There are strong, intelligent, and brave women running in this election, 3 of whom I'll work with, and others to fix the things that are broken, and will not sit silent on any issues. These are the women we need in government. So I'm thinking of who the 3 could be, Shirley. I know Sabrina has come out. Kathy Wilkes has come out. That's 2. Heather. Yes, of course, Heather. Okay. There is Gina Williams. Do we have any other women? Oh, Perlina has declared as well. So, all right, let's see the 3 that Shirley's going to be endorsing. Of those, I endorsed 3 already, because I'm Team Heather. I don't vote in Savannah, but I'm Team Heather. So if you're in Savannah, give Heather your vote, I would say. That's my personal opinion. Definitely Kathy Wilkes. Hello, that should be a no-brainer for people in West Bay Central. And Sabrina, sorry, Austin. You're too busy being a consular and you missed the boat. Joyce Ann says, we miss Cayman. Vote those in that understand that we miss and love our beloved Cayman. Larry, he says to stress what you said at the beginning of the program. I've been all over the U.S., Mexico, and the Philippines. The Cayman Islands is the most beautiful place I've ever been. Amazing people and incredibly beautiful. God bless Cayman. Thank you so much, Larry. Larry's in New York. We appreciate the love there, Larry. And Larry's enjoying his morning tea in his CMR mug. Quincy hailing us up from Cayman Brac. And he said, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman could potentially see 2 female MPs on April the 14th, 2021. Quincy, are they 2 new MPs? Or are we recycling Juliana again? Because I'm a little bit tired of her, to be honest. We need something a little bit different. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. Beulah, thank you. Driving off the big diving. Sorry, not driving. Quincy's also sharing some memories. Iron Lion says Wayne for premiere. Putting the pressure on him already. Oh, right. Cameron was saying Johan in the political ring. Okay, well, we're still waiting on Johan to declare. We wait with abated breath. Miss Iva needs a mug for her Milo. Link me up, Miss Iva. Not a problem. So Wayne, let's talk. Gosh, we're almost out of time already, and we didn't even get to discuss the cost of living. You're going to be back with us soon, though. So, some of these conversations, people just want to chat. It's been a minute that you haven't been on here, so why not keep it a little bit more lighthearted? Quincy says that he's unable to vote for Wayne Panton, but Sandy, please tell him that he has my full support. He cares, and people remember who genuinely care. Thank you for that, Quincy. And El Rey says, yes, the live events are great for when you can't get out. And you know what, El Rey, on Saturday, when I was doing the live for the Coconut Fest, after I stopped the live, I ran into a few people and they said, Sandy, I saw you live streaming. And I was like, let me get off the sofa and actually go to the event. So sometimes the live reminds you that the event is on, and then you go, oh, that looks like fun. And people come out. So thank you for the feedback on that. Troy Leacock, thank you so much, Troy, says, Wayne, what areas do you think are priorities for our country, and what is your position on the strategy of 100,000 plus population growth?
You're asking me that now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me start. Let me start with from the other end of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talking about 100,000 people. When we get to 100,000 people, is that going to be enough? What makes 100,000 people the right number? What makes 150,000 people a number that's acceptable?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've heard, when we had a population of 55, 60,000 people, which we're closer to that now than we were a year ago. There was all this discussion about, we need 100,000 people. Says who? How?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Economic activity it's all about once you have equilibrium in and opportunities and competition in various areas, you can maximize your level of economic activity domestically for a particular group. The only way that changes is if their disposable income significantly increases, which is something we need to be addressing as well. We need to be addressing the inequality in income levels, wealth disparities. But this number of 100,000 to me, I don't see where it comes from or what it means in particular, because you get to 100,000 and you're there for a year, and then somebody else is going to say we need to go to 150,000. The scary thing for me is that we are at, we were probably around 70 low 70,000s a year ago, and now we're probably in the low 60s to maybe mid 60s. And we still are feeling the same kind of compression, the same kind of frustrations, the same sort of traffic congestion, the same challenges to, being able to meet our everyday needs, feeling like the cost of living is out of control. We're feeling all of that right now. How does 100,000 people change that? That's only going to probably make a lot of those things worse. And then there are people who are advocating for doubling that. I've even heard people advocating for half a billion people in Cayman, and it's just astounding that we can consider these sorts of numbers without recognizing that we have to change the way we do things. Before we've got to get a lot of things better, a lot of things more aligned, so that the benefits flow through to our Caymanians before we start talking about figuring out how to increase the population. Because you can bet one thing, our Caymanian population is relatively stagnant and maybe growing a little bit. But the people who see Cayman as a wonderful place, and we've made it a wonderful place to live. And let's not fool ourselves. We've had a lot of people who have come and lived and worked here and been a part of our success as well, who are from other countries. That's one of the charms of Cayman in itself. It's diversity. But you can't be a magnet and a beautiful place to come and live. We've heard lots of comments from people this morning about how great it is and how beautiful it is, and I totally endorse those. But when we're having lots of people coming in to come and work, and we're growing our economy way, way, way beyond what our Caymanian people can certainly benefit from or get engaged in. Who are we building it for? Who are we creating all this, all this stress for if we're not doing things differently? If we're not figuring out how to, how to improve our environment, how to balance our approach to development within our environment, within environmental context, how to make sure that Caymanians are benefiting better, getting better education, having greater levels of participation in the economy. If we're not doing things, and COVID has taught us a lot. COVID was a reset moment for the world, for humanity, to sit back and say, okay, I can tell you, for me, as a child, I was aware of the potential for, and as a young person growing up and getting educated and all that, and all through my adult life, I was aware of the possibility of a pandemic. I just never ever thought that I would see it in my lifetime. And we're aware of, for example, the threat of climate change. But tell me where the government has been doing anything to take that seriously, to reflect climate resilience in the policies. I mean, it seems to me that every government has in the past taken the position that you just slam the accelerator to the floor and everybody just has to hold on and go for the ride, and you hope for a good outcome. In some cases you have a good outcome, but in other cases you don't, or you have a less good outcome. And we have seen what happens with unbridled growth and without having a perspective of re-examining how we do things and doing it smarter and achieving a better outcome. And COVID was an opportunity. It was a reset moment for humanity, for us in Cayman as well, to learn lessons. We've got the threat of climate change, and we've got to figure out how to do things differently to get better outcomes for our people. It is not sufficient to simply continue doing the same thing over and expect that we're going to, we're going to get a better result. We're not. People here are, if you look at the situation in the U.S., for example, the stock market is sky high, but the real economy is really suffering. Millions of people have lost jobs. There's a complete disconnect, and I have marveled at it. And we have it to a large extent in Cayman as well. We have people who live in bubbles and they have a perfectly great and normal life. But then we have a lot of Caymanians who are well down, at the poverty level, and we have a whole swath of our middle class who, if they have an emergency where they have to spend $400 or $500, they don't have it. That's the end of their savings. Even if they have savings, a lot of them have to go and borrow money from somebody to meet expenses like that. And it shouldn't be. Part of it is our responsibility as leaders in the country to try to encourage the right approach, to try to use policies and legislation to bring about the right outcomes, so that wealth disparity lessens, so that income inequality lessens, and the average level of income in the country goes up, and there's a greater level of participation, a greater level of support. I mean, we've heard a lot talked about, for example, about a sovereign wealth fund recently. Marco Archer and I had been discussing things like that from 7 years ago. And we were, at that time, our thought process was, once we get through this first term and we're able to deal with the debt issue and we're able to build reserves, that is then a real opportunity to create something like a sovereign wealth fund, where, for example, people in Alaska, they get a check every year from government from their state government for, I think it's like, well, I'm thinking probably 15 years ago now, it was something like $2,000 per person or something like that. That can help a lot of people, I'm not saying that we have to do that. I mean, I think theirs is based on oil production and significant revenue or windfall revenue from that. But if we can, as a country, put a lot of our significant budget surpluses into something like a sovereign wealth fund, then we can invest that and grow that, we then have the opportunity to address a number of policy issues, a number of real issues on the ground for people that can make an immense difference in their lives. And we could even utilize that, for example, to get to something along the lines of some kind of universal basic income level, where we're kind of doing that to some extent for seamen and their families.
Right.
But conceivably, we could expand that, to pretty much the whole country, if we were smart about the way we utilized a sovereign wealth fund. Now, obviously, you don't want to be, you don't want to be just using up all your reserves to do something like that. And unfortunately, Cayman has a long history politically of people just, deciding that they're going to find ways to dole out money to help those, including those that don't need it. I rather focus on the people that do need it, and making sure that we bring them up and improve the those who are lower income, and improve the middle class and make that stronger. Because that in itself, as I said earlier, that in itself would help to strengthen our economy, strengthen our level of domestic consumption. There's just another example, right, that really sticks in my craw. We've seen a situation with housing and the cost of housing, and there was a few comments earlier in relation to that. A lot of young people are finding it very difficult to be able to afford. They're being priced out of the market, right? Even those who are educated and who have the opportunity, who can get financing, a lot of them, they don't have the cash. It isn't liquid and available to them immediately, but they can qualify for financing. But what happens is we have a system here where anybody can come from anywhere in the world and buy any real estate. There's no limitations, there's no restrictions at all. And because Cayman is desirable, you got a lot of people coming in, investing on speculation. And a Caymanian that finds a nice place, but has to go through a process of waiting a month or a month and a half for a financing clearance process, they can easily get gazumped, meaning they can have somebody come in that has the cash, and they'll say, hey, you're asking 400 for this. I don't care who's made an offer on it. If it's not confirmed, if it's not locked in, I'll give you 380 cash right now. And a lot of people go for that. And Caymanians end up losing out. Young Caymanians in particular end up losing out. And then you have this. Let me get to the point that I was talking earlier about what was annoying me. We had this thing called years ago, which, to be honest, I don't remember who created it, but I believe it might have been created under the PPM administration of 2005 to 2009. I don't remember for sure, but I can stand corrected on that. But it was a good thing in terms of its effect. It was called the Government Guaranteed Home Assistance Mortgage Program. And I remember in 2015, the relevant minister, I won't name any names, but the relevant minister came and made a presentation to some of us, some of his cabinet colleagues, and I think it was an informal presentation, and basically saying, yes, we're going to restart this, and this is a good thing. And GGHAM effectively is a government guarantee system where they'll guarantee like the first 35% of the loss on a mortgage to some of the banks that are participating in the program. So if you have a mortgage, if you get a mortgage with a particular bank, government will guarantee the first 35%, and that means that the person who is seeking to qualify and buy the property and buy the home doesn't have to come up with a 35% down payment that most banks will be looking for. Anyway, this was 2015. Since then, the government's financial position has only improved, so it could actually even afford an expanded version of GGHAM to enable young Caymanians and Caymanians that are in the lower income bracket to be able to afford to buy their own home. But I discovered to my dismay, reading a news article, I think a few weeks ago, or maybe a month and a half ago, that it never was put in place, and it hasn't been in place all this time.
Wow.
So I mentioned earlier about, trying to stay in your own lane and do your own thing. My view is I'm not sticking to any lane. My lane is going to be wide open, because I have to look at everything that is potentially impacting or potentially going to benefit people that I would represent. And I am not going to just say, I've got to focus on my thing. I'm also going to look at everything else that makes a difference. And whether if it's negative, I want to try to address it and find a solution to it. If it's positive, I want to push it and encourage the other minister or whoever it is that's dealing with it to get it done. And I am amazed that something that is as beneficial as GGHAM hasn't been put back in place, particularly over the last 4 years when government could have afforded it even more than at any point in the last probably 15 years. And it hasn't been available to young Caymanians or lower income Caymanians to be able to buy their own home. And it's not just, yes, we have this, we have the National Housing Development Trust and that program. That's all good too. And I mean, we've heard the manager for that saying that, I mean, I think he's been doing a good job, but we've heard the manager from that saying that, they have, I think they said they have 400 people who are on the waiting list. But there are lots of other houses that are being built outside of that program that people could, through GGHAM, take advantage of and become homeowners. So it's really frustrating for me when I see something like that could make a difference to people not being paid attention to. And I don't know why it hasn't been paid attention to. And the article that I read at the time didn't seem to attribute a particular reason for it. Broadly,
we do have sorry, Wayne, we do have a few questions and we are running out of time. We've ran out, but that's okay. We're into a little bit of overtime. One question that we've gotten on WhatsApp a couple times. One person says, "Good morning. Mr. Panton says that he has left the PPM. I see that he's running with Heather Bodden and Osborne Bodden in this election. Does that mean that they have left the PPM as well?" And then someone else asked another question kind of relating to that, saying, "Great show with Kenneth and Wayne, thumbs up. Is Wayne still attached to PPM? I know it's one man, one vote, but we have had a disastrous 4 years with this current government, which seems more like a PPM government with a number of them occupying those seats. So just wondering if Wayne is still PPM."
I don't know how many times,
answered it before, but obviously,
I don't know how many times I can say it. I didn't actually publicize it when I left the PPM last year.
We did, in case people missed it.
You did because someone called you, and it had to be someone from the PPM, called you and told you, I think within an hour of me submitting my resignation, you called me and asked me about it.
Yeah.
I never asked you for your source. That's fine.
Yeah. And to be honest, I can't remember who it was, but anyway.
Yeah.
News travels fast.
He told you that. And that's fine, but I'm just saying I didn't publicize it, but it was very clear, it became public that I had resigned from the PPM. And what do people want me to say? I don't. Yes, I was involved with the PPM. I think everybody knows that I was very centrally involved with the PPM in 2013 when we went into government. The year before that, and yes, I was. I personally feel like I played a very central role there. I remember specifically, Alden at the time, or the premier. Hope he doesn't get upset if I refer to him by the name his mother gave him sometimes. But I remember saying to him, "Look, I'm here to help, and you need to sort of get over, being in a funk about losing an election in 2009. There were there's a lot of things that you can talk about in a positive way, and in just basically encouraging him. I think all of them. It was a matter of public record that I invested quite a bit of money at the time into the PPM to run that campaign, because the country needed a new government. It needed a proper government that was going to address the disaster that was left after the 2009 to 2013 administration. And I know it was split. The last 5 months, we're not going to talk about any of that, but I'm just saying overall, the situation was a disaster. From a governance perspective, from a financial national financial position, from the relationship with the UK, everything was a disaster. And we desperately needed, the country desperately needed help, and it was delivered at that time. But it seems to me that there has been a drift away from those kinds of principles and values that certainly I wanted to reflect at that time. I don't know what it is. It's political expediency, or it's just certain weaknesses. And I'm not talking about everybody, because there are people that I don't have any issues with. I won't complain about, except that you got to stand up and say something when your voice needs to be counted. You got to stand for something, and I understand party politics. I understand organized politics. And I believe fundamentally that you need to have a level of organized politics in order to run a country, run a government. That's why, but organized politics doesn't have to mean that you are under or a member of a party that has a specific, adopted constitution and all that. It really means that you need to be part of a committed team of people who are going to seek to achieve the best for the country overall, and try to make a positive difference in the lives of the people of the country. If you're all independents and there's no real connection, there's no shared ideology, then it is a problem. It is a problem, because a lot of the times the same things that drive people to say, well, I'm an independent and I'm not going to be aligned with this one or that one, and I'm going to row my own boat. That sort of perspective and approach leads to a situation where ego gets in the way of really being able to work together and achieve a lot. I believe you have to. The thing I respect, I don't care how great you are, I don't care how intelligent you are, I don't care how much money you have. The thing that I find in a human being to be the most desirable trait, the thing I respect the most, is humility, and just wanting the collective greater good for everybody, and agreeing to work together to achieve that. People talk. I've had people say to me, you should be premier and you should this. Look, I don't have a driving ambition to be premier, but I will do what I have to do for the benefit of the country. If people feel that I can do that, I will guarantee you I will do it to the best of my ability. But it's not something that I am going to get convenient about and stab people in the back, and it's not some kind of agenda that I have. I must achieve that at all costs, or my life will be meaningless. No, my life has meaning when I help the average person. That's what makes me. That's what motivates me.
Mm-hmm. So a few comments have come in about this whole, population increase. My concern, of course, is population increase is one thing, as you rightfully said. What's the point? What's the end goal? And why some magic number that somebody has just pulled out of thin air? But in my mind, if we're at 60 or 65,000 and we can't even manage what we have traffic issues on Wazoo, we have healthcare provision issues, we have massive educational issues. Caymanians specifically are being disenfranchised. Growing our population only, in my opinion, expedites those issues and compounds those issues. I want to hear about solutions at the 60,000 population level first before we start talking about the benefits of getting to 100,000 or any other number. Because to me, it doesn't make any sense. It's like being in business is great, and growing your business is great, except there is a difference between growth and managed growth. And managed growth means that you can provide the services that you promise your clients, the level of customer service, quality, etc. All of those things matter. So I can have 1 million customers, or I can have 200 customers. If I've got 200 customers and they're genuinely happy and I'm doing a good service, to me, that's the most important thing, as opposed to just having numbers. Because, at the end of the day, you can have all the population growth in the world that you want, but if you're not running things effectively, you've got a problem. So I want to hear us talking about, I think it was Kathy that mentioned here in the comment section, overdeveloping all of our shoreline to the point where you can't even look and see and enjoy a sunset anymore. That is now becoming a thing of the past, which is concerning. Miss Valdine says, what's the sense of overdeveloping or increasing our population when we're importing a lot of poverty and those persons are having to rely on NAU, which is busting at the seams? Does that really make any sense? And I think there has to be some discussion at some point about the quality of what we seek to import as well, because not all people that are being allowed into this country, in my humble opinion, should be allowed in. We're importing criminals, we're importing vagabonds and everything else that are just coming here to take advantage of the system. So Wayne, so much to discuss. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Of course, like I said, Wayne will be a regular fixture here on the program, because as we have invited all candidates, the people do want to hear from you. They want to hear what your opinions are, where you stand on these different issues. No one can put words in your mouth. As a candidate, you need to be able to express yourself, share your opinions, share your positions. Some candidates have said, they're not going to have an official manifesto. I don't care how you do it. That's completely on you. But I think the key, as you can see, is you need to have an open forum where you're able to communicate frankly and honestly with people. And we certainly provide that platform here on CMR. So Bonnie says, amen. Quincy is still here. Cameron says, real talk, Sandy. Every election, we have the same talking points. How do we start to address these national concerns? So a first step, Wayne is on. The last time he joined us, he was here with his other, team members that they'll be working with. They're not a party, but they're working together in unison. So they're sharing, I think, collective resources as well as a collective theme for community building country. So we know that we'll definitely be hearing from Heather. We'll be hearing from Ozzy as well in the coming weeks leading up to April the 14th. And I was kind of looking, as Wayne was talking, I was going back into archives, and I have shared the link here for when he resigned last year, March, I want to say that. You guys go back.
March 5th last year.
Yep. You guys can go back and read the article. And in fact, it was days right after days after the protests on the whole situation with Mr. Bush. So remember, his assault took place around February the 22nd or so. And then there was a protest. And within a day or two of the protest, both Wayne Panton and Oswald Bawden resigned. Has Heather resigned? I've never actually heard that, but I'm assuming she's.
Well, I mean, she has obviously had a lower profile. She's never been an elected PPM member.
Okay.
I can, to be honest, I can't even really tell you definitively that she ever was a PPM member.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was, and I don't know offhand whether she has resigned. But it's neither here nor there. I mean, the important people, if you're looking at the team, the important people are those who were originally or at some point elected under a PPM government. And not to minimize her significance, because hers is fantastic as well. I mean, that she has been in the community here. You were talking earlier about people popping up and disappearing for the rest of the time. Heather Bawden has been here working her backside off, helping people left, right, and center for years. So and she does it in an apolitical way. She, it's not the, that she really flies any colors or anything like that. It is about her heart and soul being shared with the people of her constituency, her community.
Yeah.
And you know what? She does it all over the island, all over the country with everybody, as much as she can. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll tell you, sometimes she's a big inspiration to me because she's like a little Energizer bunny. She just keeps going. But yeah, I mean, I don't know offhand, but I think she probably intends to resign if she has not in fact resigned. But at the end of the day, I don't think it matters. There's a lot of people. We have lots of people who are PPM people or ex-PPM people. There are people who are some of the biggest critics of the PPM, who refuse to resign as a matter of principle.
Yeah, I think Billy's one of those people.
Billy Adams is a good example. He is member number one.
Yeah.
He has always told me, I am not resigning from the PPM no matter what.
Yeah, because he has membership number 1, and he refuses to give that up. And so despite him, saying that Alden is the least likely to want participatory democracy, which Billy obviously believes in, he refuses to resign from the PPN, I guess on a matter of principle. I'm not really sure. Yeah. But anyway, so and a lot of us, I was an original PPM member way back in the day, and I think a lot of us had high hopes for the party system, and we had high hopes specifically for the PPM. In my personal opinion, a lot has changed since 2003, when we were sitting there trying to put this people-centric party together, and it wasn't ever supposed to be about personalities. And I think, unfortunately, that has changed. Wayne, thank you so much for joining us. Alric, we will see you on Thursday. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Now, it is a public holiday, but you guys know us here on CMR. Public holidays don't stop us. The show must go on. So we tend to host our regular shows on public holidays as well. So West Bay Wednesdays, we will have Catherine Wilkes on the program, and we will have Raul Nicholson Co. In terms of some happenings in the political arena. So yesterday, some of you found this as a surprise announcement. Of course, we at CMR knew that this was coming, but Andre Ebanks, who is a former, he's since resigned over the weekend, who is the former UK representative for the Cayman Islands, has thrown his hat into the campaign ring as well. And so he will be running in the exact same area, West Bay South, as Tara Rivers and Raul. Now, if Tara drops out, then it's a race, obviously, at this point between Raul Nicholson Co. and Andre Ebanks. Very, very interesting, because, in fact, Mr. Ebanks worked under Tara's ministry as a deputy chief officer, financial services, before he got appointed to this position, I think back in 2019. Then Mr. Justin Ebanks has declared, his story has gone up at 8:30 this morning, for the District of Northside. Justin, this is his second time running as an independent candidate. So he has likewise declared his candidacy, and his platform is Cayman's Future Matters. Very, very interesting. And he says that candidates who not only have integrity, but vision, energy, and skills to work together for the people on today's global stage. What is leadership without cooperation? We need to build a better future for our communities, and the time to plan is now or never. And he's taken a quote from, I think, Winston Churchill, where he says, the ear of the leader must ring with the voices of the people. I love that quote, actually. So congratulations to those two young men. And I'm sure we will be having more announcements to come. Last week, we saw former civil servant manager, Mr. McCleary Frederick, has declared for East End as well. So it looks like East End is going to be 3 or 4 man race. And North Side seems to be shaping up to be very much the same also. Now, there is a big announcement. Everybody has been wondering what is going on for West Bay West with Mr. McKeeva Bush. Some people are hoping for a massive change. I can tell you that I have known for a number of weeks now who the person is that has been seriously thinking about running in that district. And I think the decision is now inked, but we will confirm when we can. Certainly, we don't hold back too often in terms of just letting you guys know who it is, but there are certain times that's a little bit sensitive because of employment situations. So we do take that into consideration. So Ms. Irvelin at Alwick, we can talk about sovereign wealth funds when you come on the program. Elizabeth says, one thing I know is that it's hard to make a living in the islands for everything is so expensive, extremely expensive. Ms. Sue, thank you so much for tuning in. She has concerns about retiree health insurance. So the next time Wayne is on, we'll make sure that that's one of the issues. And not just for retirees, health insurance for anybody is expensive, Ms. Sue. I mean, trust me, if you have a family of 4 people, your deductions that are coming out of your salary is like really crazy for health insurance. So we can certainly talk more about those issues and what some of the possible solutions are. Wayne, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me as usual, Sandra. Always a pleasure. I love being able to see the comments coming in and being able to engage and respond.
Yes, and we have a lot of regulars here and a lot of people really enjoy commenting. Folks, don't forget that you don't have to just comment. You can actually call into the program as well. It is a video call, but you can choose to turn off your camera if you wish. Cameron saying good luck, best of luck to Mr. Panton. He will be joining us again soon. And again, we've got Heather lined up. We've got Ozzy lined up. And we will be doing conversations with segments. Now, everything has been expedited because of the decision last week, Wednesday. So, the horse just went from a little gallop to like a full speed running ahead, but we will get as much done as we can. Just as an FYI, yesterday we spoke to the Chamber of Commerce about their candidate forums. What I'm thinking to do just to sort of maximize our efficiency here at Cayman Mall Road is to piggyback off of their forum so that we don't have to recreate the proverbial wheel and do our own forum. Originally, that was the idea, because I think that, we do reach a very different audience and we want people to be able to jump in and ask the questions. But given the time crunches, we've just lost, I think, 6 weeks off the election. We need to be smart, and working smart is a skill set that a lot of people need to employ for sure. So working smarter, we're going to piggyback off of what the chamber does. We will live stream that here on our platform so you guys will have the benefit of seeing the candidates participate in that nonpartisan, non-political forum. Tracy, thank you so much. Tracy says, thank you for another great show. It's encouraging to see the potential of new great runners and visionaries vote educated and responsibly. Cayman. Thank you, Cameron. Do a prediction competition. Ooh, Cameron, that's actually a good idea, because yesterday I was talking about a prediction with Wendy Ledger, and Wendy didn't agree with me about a particular district. And I said, Wendy, I'm going to put a wager on it. I'm going to take you out to dinner if you lose. So I kind of like that idea. We'll do a little prize pack or something for some of the upsets that I think are definitely coming. Yes, Cameron, win some CMR merch. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and everybody else who tuned in this morning. Folks, please go out there, be safe, have a wonderful day, work hard. Like I said, we've got another press conference coming up this afternoon. So stay close to your phones or the PC so that you can hear what Asher Cayman, the new medical facility, they've actually selected a location. So they're going to tell us today where that location is. So that should be super interesting. And other than that, we'll do a live stream this evening. We do have a candidate follow-along segment. One of the newer candidates is going to be visiting a local church. And so we will go with him on that journey to see how that goes. And we're giving you guys a little snippet of all the campaign happenings, folks, behind the scenes and everything else. So stay tuned. Keep it locked right here to Cayman Mall Road.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.